Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for this special Memorial Day tribute. Today we're going to take a brief look at the life of Edward OHare and his son. Now, OHare had become a wildly successful lawyer in Chicago, so successful that he was able to afford a lavish lifestyle for his family and send his son to a private military academy. Unfortunately, the success came at a cost. OHare was partly successful because he worked for the criminal element that was so prevalent in Chicago in those days. In fact, he became the private attorney for none other than Al Capone. Now, Capone, who called him Easy Eddie, was very satisfied with OHare's work. In fact, he allowed OHare and his family to live in a house that took up an entire city block in Chicago. At some point, OHare determined that he didn't want to leave a legacy of crime and corruption for his son and for his family, and so he decided to go straight, and he started working with the government in an effort to bring Capone down. Unfortunately, Capone caught wind of this, and within a year of starting to work for the government, Capone had OHare murdered. And he was murdered on November 8th, 1939, gunned down in his car in the streets of Chicago. Now, OHare's son, Edward H OHare, also known as Butch OHare, had become a Navy pilot, a Navy fighter pilot, and in 1942 he had a remarkable mission that he was on. In fact, I'm going to read part of what that mission was about. Lieutenant Commander Butch OHare was assigned to the aircraft carrier Lexington in the South Pacific. One day, his entire squadron was sent on a mission. After he was airborne, he looked at his fuel gauge and realized that someone had forgotten to top off his fuel tank. He would not have enough fuel to complete his mission and get back to his ship. His flight leader told him to return to the carrier, and reluctantly he dropped out of formation and headed back to the fleet. As he was returning, he spotted a squadron of Japanese aircraft speeding their way toward the American fleet. And since the American fighters were gone on a sortie, the fleet was all but defenseless. He couldn't reach his squadron and bring them back in time to save the fleet, nor could he warn them of the approaching danger. So he dove into the formation of Japanese planes. With wing-mounted .50 calibers blazing as he charged in, he attacked one plane after another. He wove in and out of the now broken formation and fired at as many planes as possible until his ammunition was finally spent. Undaunted, he continued the assault, and he dove at the planes, trying to clip a wing or a tail in hopes of damaging as many airplanes as possible. Finally, the Japanese squadron took off, and he was able to land his tattered fighter on the carrier. In total, he was able to single-handedly destroy 5 enemy aircraft. In this picture, you can see 5 Japanese flags on the side of his plane, symbolizing the 5 planes that he was able to shoot down. Now, he was given a citation, of course, a Medal of Honor for his service, and here you can see President Roosevelt shaking his hand and honoring him for all he had done. A couple of days later, on April 25th, 1942, Butch OHare was given an honorary parade in his hometown, his birthplace of St. Louis, Missouri. Now, he did go back into the war, but let me read his citation, or part of his citation. Without hesitation, alone and unaided, he repeatedly attacked this enemy formation at close range in the face of intense combined machine gun and cannon fire. As a result of his gallant action, one of the most daring, if not the most daring, single action in the history of combat aviation, he undoubtedly saved his carrier from serious damage. So OHare did go back into combat, and unfortunately in 1943 he was shot down by a Japanese bomber. His body and the wreckage of his plane were never found. He was declared missing in action November 29, 1943. As part of the recognition of his service and the honor, and in an effort to honor his name, he got a pretty distinct recognition in that one of the airports in Chicago was renamed to OHare International Airport. Now, many of you, including myself, have flown into OHare or through OHare, and it is the 6th busiest airport in the world, the 3rd busiest in the United States. And so here we have an amazing tribute to really to two individuals that both made sacrifices. The father eventually making sacrifices so that his son could have a better life, and of course the son making the ultimate sacrifice of giving his life for our freedom. So today we honor Butch OHare and his dad as well, Eddie and Butch OHare, for their sacrifice to our country. Thank you so much. Have a blessed Memorial Day as we honor those who have given their lives for our country. Take care.